What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name's Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs postgame show. We finally have a final score from this week's matchup between the Michigan Wolverines and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. The Michigan Wolverines barely take it by a score of 48-42 in third OT. And I mean, what an absolutely pathetic game. That was brutal. That was hard to watch as a Michigan fan. And yeah, I'm absolutely speechless. We'll get to the box score in just a second, but I want to break down my thoughts first. And my first thoughts are, I hope that Michigan, as not a football team, but a football program, really takes a step back after this game and just says, guys, what are we doing? This is a Rutgers team that in the past 5 years, in the past 5 games against Rutgers, we've outscored by a score of 256-37. And I know that Rutgers has gotten better this year, but Michigan consistently puts out top recruiting classes every single year. And to put out such a pathetic game like that is ridiculous. And I think it starts again with the coaching staff, and all three of them, but especially starting with Jim Harbaugh. This is a game that Cade McNamara should have started from the get-go. Joe Milton is a guy who, coming into this game, struggled for 3 consecutive games after week 1 against Minnesota. And last week, Cade McNamara led the only good drive that the Wolverines had. And I know that you can say in hindsight, or you could say that I'm only saying this because looking in hindsight, Cade McNamara looks better. But that's not the case. He led the only good drive last week. And I know that Joe Milton, you could say, is more skilled in terms of his arm strength and in terms of his mobility. But for whatever reason, Cade McNamara is able to lead this offense better. And it's not just this week that we've seen that. In terms of the defense, I was ready to not rant. If they had gotten that stop at the end of regulation, I probably would have said, okay, the defense was fine. But at the end of the day, the defensive play calling in the first half was not fantastic at all. The secondary, again, was brutal. Vincent Gray's gotten better since the first couple weeks, but today Daxton Hill, he collapsed twice on the deep balls, leading to 2 Rutgers touchdowns. And I know that we had injuries with Kwity Paye, Hutchison, the McGrone one early, also Brad Hawkins in the second half. But we struggled to figure it out defensively. And we got some clutch stops, we did. And especially hurt, we got the big stops when the odds were against us. But that last drive in regulation was absolutely brutal. And that's a game that should have ended in regulation. And I just think that it's absolutely pathetic. I think that Josh Gaddis isn't great, but I think it's a main concern with Jim Harbaugh and Don Brown, and it's absolutely pathetic. And some of the calls, man, just give me a break, man. This coaching staff is pathetic. Jim Harbaugh and Don Brown especially need to go. And I think they would have gone if this was a loss, but we'll see what happens moving on to the future. But I think that we definitely need to keep an eye out for that, because this is not acceptable anymore. Let's move on to the box score now. Joe Milton, 5 for 12, 89 yards. He was not good once again, as I was saying before. In the second quarter, he missed 7 of his 8 consecutive passes and was replaced by Cade McNamara with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. Cade McNamara was fantastic, man. We found our quarterback. 27 for 36, 260 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. If we put him in any sooner, this is a game that we win way ahead of time and well into regulation, in my opinion. But we're lucky to get the win out here. Hassan Haskins was good, especially in the second half. Got the ground game going. 23 carries, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. Charbonnet was okay. 148 yards as a team on the ground. In terms of receiving, Cornelius Johnson led the way. 5 receptions, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. They had 4 touchdowns in the air. They were all right in terms of receiving. Not really many drop passes like we saw. They clicked with Cade McNamara, especially in the second half. And I think that's the way to go in the future. In terms of Rutgers, they were all right. Noah Vedral passed 29 for 43, 378 yards, 3 touchdowns and interception. They blew a 10-point lead in the second half last week. They were up 17 points in this game. I mean, Rutgers is a team that's moving in the right direction. They're not there yet. I thought Noah Vedral did a good job of extending some plays, giving his receivers opportunities to make catches. And I think if you're a Rutgers fan, it's just a really unfortunate choke there in the second half. In terms of receiving, they did really good. They were lucky to not have Milton get injured in the second half. Jones led the way with 7 receptions, 127 yards. Milton had 109 yards. And Cruikshank also had 80 yards receiving. Michigan had trouble stopping those 3 guys. It wasn't enough. But again, I think the Rutgers are trending in the right direction. Let's move on to the team stats now. Michigan got better on third down. They were 6 for 16. They missed a few third downs late. But especially early, Michigan was putting themselves into third and short situations, something that we haven't really seen much from the Wolverines this year. And it gave them a chance to extend drives, and I thought that that was definitely one of the positives from the Wolverines today. Overall, almost 500 total yards. Rutgers were right there as well. Michigan outran Rutgers, but Rutgers, ton of penalties, especially on the pass interference ones. The pass interference one that the Rutgers had late in overtime definitely hurt them. And I think the Wolverines definitely got lucky here. Let's look ahead to next week now. Michigan will face one of the only teams that's struggling more than them. They'll face the 0-5 Penn State Nittany Lions, who are 0-5 for the first time in their program history, and who come off a 41-21 loss to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Rutgers will go and face the Purdue Boilermakers, who go into that game with a record of 2-2. They come off a 34-31 loss to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So that's looking ahead to next week. I hope the Michigan Wolverines can figure it out. I expect Cade McNamara to start. I think that the Wolverines will have a bit of momentum going into that game. Hopefully they feel like they figured out some stuff. Hopefully the Wolverines get some players back in the field, because like I was saying, especially defensively, they're very hurt. And even though there were some times that made me very frustrated, I think that they were pretty good with the odds stacked against them. If you look at this game as just the second half, I think that this was a very productive game in terms of moving the Wolverines' offense in the right direction. The only thing that I would say is I want to see Ronnie Bell get into the game more. We see him downfield, with the double coverage, but if the Wolverines can find a way to get Ronnie Bell, who really is their top receiver, if they can figure out a way to work him, this is a very dangerous Wolverines offense. And it should be more exciting to end the season. Anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you. Let me know your thoughts on the game down in the comment section below. I always love looking at the conversations that start in the comments, and I love getting into those as well. And I know that a lot of Wolverines fans have a lot of strong opinions on this game, because, there is a lot to talk about. But if you're a Rutgers Scarlet Knights fan, or a college football fan in general, let me hear from you guys as well, because I want to know your thoughts on this game. If you haven't already checked out our podcast and our store, the links for those will be down in the description. Some really great content from our podcast. If you haven't checked those out, I definitely suggest that you do that. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.